Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Community FC. It's been a little while since we've had one. There's been lots of various stuff going on with fixtures, and people been away on holidays and all sorts of stuff. We've both been away, so that's been nice to get away from it all. But obviously, still keeping up with football where we can, because that's what football fans do. So this is going to be a Roundup review, season 2, episode 4, and we've got kind of an interesting one tonight. We're going to be talking about lots about the teams and how teams are doing and progressing. So you've got some interesting points to talk about. Probably the top of the table, the bottom table, and the middle of the table. It's kind of a really like overall episode. So as always, I'd like to introduce my co-host, Rich. How you doing, mate?
Very well, thank you, Aidan. Thanks for having me as always.
No, you are very welcome, sir. But yeah, so we've both been away, kind of recharged, relaxed a little bit, and we're looking forward to cracking on. We actually spent some time over that time watching some football together, which was nice. And yeah, we will kind of just straight away crack on. So the first kind of category I wanted to talk about on our list is we're going to jump into overachievers and underachievers, and that's quite a broad subject. But I think there's certain teams that we're probably both going to touch on. So should we start with the underachievers? Why not? And we'll go get all positive.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to start, to be honest. It's an interesting one because there are definitely a few teams this season who are quite far from where you'd probably put them.
Yep.
The two biggest teams, I would say, there, Leicester City and Everton. Now, if we start with Everton,
yep,
obviously just come off of a loss to Southampton. Fantastic game. Southampton played very well, but Everton just looked honestly awful. It's interesting because I think that Everton have spent, close to £500 million in the last 3 or 4 years.
Yep.
And to see a team spend that much money and be where they are is honestly quite shocking.
Yeah.
I think the hiring of Rafa was maybe a really bad decision for him.
Desperation.
Yeah, definitely. I think Lampard. I think he'll steer them out of trouble. I don't think they're going to get relegated.
Yeah.
But don't. They are in a relegation battle.
Definitely. Yeah.
They're on the same level of points as Newcastle. They're 4 points outside the relegation zone. And to be honest, I think they are in a bit of trouble. The team itself looks like they're just like a bunch of superstars who can't play together. There's no team chemistry. Watching them against Southampton at the weekend, their back four was honestly one of the worst back fours I've ever seen play in the Premier League. They just couldn't handle anything that was thrown at them. And if it wasn't for Jordan Pickford, I think they'd be in a lot worse trouble than they currently are. The fact they've got such a top quality goalkeeper has really saved them.
Yeah, I think, well, I'll kind of get onto some of their players a bit later on in another segment, but I think what you said is completely right. And I think that the money they spent, but also the second factor is the money that they are currently spending on their incredible new stadium, obviously on the dock side, which the concept art is anything to go by, will look fantastic. But they kind of had aspirations. That's where I think we talked about this. It kind of is desperation, kind of isn't the whole Rafa thing, and they thought we can try and get to maybe European spots again, and that's what that stadium and that money that you're spending equals. And so far they're not getting that, and I think absolutely they're definitely up down there on the underachievers list. I think most people were expecting them to have a much better season as investment, but as you said, it's kind of, if Richarlison wants to turn up that game, he does it, and if not, he doesn't. And they've had a lot of injuries and stuff like that, but they're just still not performing anywhere near. I do agree with you. We'll touch on something to do with the manager later on as well, but I do agree with you that I think they'll steer clear, but they need a hell of a change and a clear out in summer and a mix then. So I'll jump on one of mine quickly, and then we'll go back to you with your next team, because I think you had a lot to say on Leicester. So one that I wanted to chuck in, and there was Leeds. So I think that Leeds as well are, well, they are absolutely the second season syndrome team this year by a very, very long way. And I think we don't need to spend too much talking about them. They've just fallen apart, and Bielsa hasn't got them working. I don't know whether maybe the team itself are just sick of his training sessions as well, where it's fitness, and kind of nothing else. And it's a shame because there's some individual players in that Leeds squad and that look really, really good. And also, I actually like the way that they sometimes play together as a squad. It just doesn't seem to work at the same time. Like if Rodrigo, Rafinha, for example, aren't having a good game, the rest of the team are. Like Dan James will be looking good, Luke Ayling will be looking good. That's kind of working. But then if the superstars, as we mentioned at the beginning, are on form, the team don't seem to really work, and it's really bizarre. And I think that Leeds are in a really unique situation where they've done so poorly compared to the previous season that I think it'd be really interesting to see whether they stick with Bielsa at the end of the season, because I don't know who they'll get to replace them if not, but I don't see, if they continue to finish where I think they will, there is no other choice really. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, we touched on it in an episode of Roundup review before Christmas. I think the biggest problem with Leeds is that there is no plan B, and now everyone knows how to set up to counter a Bielsa team. And I think they really struggle with it. And, you know, with Bielsa, you get a kind of a high press, high energy. And unfortunately, with that, you're going to get a lot of injuries. And I think Leeds have been plagued with injuries this season.
They have.
You know, Bamford has been in and out the squad
Phillips,
like a yo-yo. Phillips the same as well. And, you know, and arguably, you'd say that Phillips is the kind of linchpin in that that midfield, and they really, really struggle. And don't get me wrong, they're dragged into this relegation battle as well. They're only 1 point above Newcastle and Everton. You know, Everton have got a game in hand on them as well. It's not looking pretty. Again, I do think they've got enough to steer clear of the bottom three. But yeah, it's a close one. And the thing is as well, is that in the summer, I would be very, very surprised if they managed to hold on to the likes of Rafinha and Calvin Phillips.
Yeah, I think both of them are very likely to leave at this point. And I think we've said before, Rafinha is going to go to somewhere 100%. And whether Rodrigo stays and tries to pick up being the main man under Rafinha's shadow, who knows? It's one of them. Anyway, we spend all day talking about them, so I'll let you move on to Leicester, and then I've got one more on the underachievers.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know what is wrong with Leicester.
I don't think anyone does.
Like, because on paper they're a good team. Now, I mean, as a Saints fan, I'm happy to see them below us after, you know, the Vestergaard and the Bertrand going there for you know, bigger club or whatever. So that makes me happy as a Saints fan. But as an impartial co-host of Community FC, I don't know what's wrong with Leicester. Arguably, Jamie Vardy spending a lot of the season out is a big problem for him, but they never really were a one-man team.
No,
you know, Vardy has been influential and very important for them, but I still don't think that that's quite the reason, and I don't know whether it might be time for Brendan Rodgers to move on.
Well, I think, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. Like they have such a good team, and Vardy did put massive numbers in him and always was on form. But James Maddison was always picking up like crazy amounts of assists, was working that midfield as well. You know, Tielemans was getting better and better and better, and they had big leaders at the back as well. And something is just not clicking. We said, you know, they had, again, we say it's a lot, and it has been a really injury-prone season, maybe because of you know, the weird schedule that they had through COVID and coming back, and then had to play a lot of games and then not summer off and all this kind of stuff. But they, you know, they have Maddison out, they had Tielemans out, and then when they've come back in, they've both had good form, but they haven't found it. You know, Vardy has been good, but he's been really, really hit and miss. He's been either purple patch or just nothing or injured. But Rodgers, I don't know. It seems to be some of it's coming from the managerial decisions, and you know, I don't want to put a too higher kind of praise on this to kind of maybe he got his head turned a bit by the United links. Who knows? Like, you know, we've seen that before with clubs and players and managers alone. I don't know what it is. And I actually don't think anyone currently in the world of football knows what is going on with Leicester City, because in all terms and purposes, the team that they have, the manager that they have, and the fans that they have, they should be producing much better performances on that, and you know, it's just not going well for them. And actually, that's a good point. I didn't even think about that in my head. I've just, the Leicester fans as well, you need to sort yourselves out, because Leicester used to be a team that lots of neutrals used to like and cheer for in these cups and stuff like the FA Cup. But if your fans in the current weeks are acting how they are, you're going to start getting a really bad reputation. And just because the chips are down, you can't think of yourself as this massive team that you might think you are because you've won these stuff and you've done incredibly well. But just don't lose that fun factor about you and behave, because otherwise you're going to be in a world of pain with fans as well.
Yeah, completely agree.
Anything else you want to touch on Leicester, or move on?
No, we can move on.
Just a mystery.
Yeah, I literally got no idea.
And again, I don't think anyone does. So the last one actually might surprise some listeners, but I think it is worth saying as you said, a partial Community FC person, putting your own team's feelings aside. The last person I have on the list for Underachievers is my team, is Manchester United, because purely and simply, we won't spend too long on it, the squads that we had in summer, people were going, this is the title contender year for United, and by all means it should have been. Various things have happened, managerial stuff on and off the pitch, players coming in, Harry Maguire, for example, losing lots of confidence, Rashford not looking the same since your injury. We're starting to see pick up. We're not really talking it, but Sancho's starting to look good in the last couple of games again. He looks like Dortmund Sancho. I think stuff's going to start picking up, and uncertainty over managers. But I do think if you're talking about underachievers, you have to say we should have easily had kind of on that squad, it should have been first and second, even like maximum third place, and it's not. We're going to be fighting for European spots, which we will talk to in a minute anyway. But I just wanted to put that out there because I think on paper we definitely are. But let's go to a more positive note. Again, we've got a couple to talk about on my list. I don't know what you have, but let's start with you for overachievers.
Overachievers. I mean, we look at the table as it currently stands. I don't think we can class West Ham as overachievers at the moment. I think they are. This is the second season they've been sitting kind of where they are. I think they're a well-organised and a well-drilled team. Yeah. They are. They remind me a lot of David Moyes' Everton in that respect. I think they're a good squad, and I think they'll continue to be reasonably successful if they can keep hold of key players.
Yeah,
like Declan Rice.
Yeah.
But I think the first one on that list I want to talk about is Wolves. Obviously started the season quite shaky.
Yeah.
Bruno Lage has come in and really steadied the ship. And now they're just going from strength to strength, really. They're a really well organised team. You've got the likes of Ruben Neves, who's now firing. And I think they, there's a few teams in the league that I'd be worried coming up against. I think Wolves are one of those teams. I think they can pull a surprise out the bag.
Yeah.
Defensively, they are compact and they're really, really strong, really well drilled, really well organised, and teams struggle to break them down. I think, and they've got that quality to hit on the break.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think they have literally come out of nowhere. They've snuck up on some people, and there were some fixtures behind and stuff as well, but they really have. And yeah, they, under Lage, you said they've been doing incredibly well. And yeah, the defense is a really good point you put out. Like Connor Cody and people like that are playing out of their mind this season. Like I remember the United game, and there was like 5 on a goal line clearances, and you're like, how are they doing? But they're together. They're a unit, and that's what you need. And I think that Wolves before, the people joked about, we have to be Portuguese speaker, blah, 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 blah. And they were like, well, now they've lost Jota and it's only going to be the Jimenez show. But actually, this is what this year's proven, that they're not. They're working together as a unit, and that's really paying dividends for them. On your West Ham point, I agree. I don't think they're overachievers, but I do think there's, for me, some slight surprise that they are managing to keep it up for a second season, the same kind of form that they did the end of last season. Because I didn't think they'd be crazy far off the pace, but I didn't think they'd be 4th. I thought they'd be kind of 5th, 6th, 7th, kind of looking in, rather than kind of keeping up with that 4th place currently as it sits. One for me, I don't know if this is controversial, and it was kind of on the back of what you've just said about how a team started so poorly. And again, neutral, not having a dig at any teams, but for me, actually, I'd say currently an overachiever would be Arsenal, just from how poor the start of the season was. It looks like Arteta was going to be sacked first, and they looked absolute shambles, but because of some last minute signings, they actually look really good, and they're coming good. So I think, not necessarily crazy overachievers, they should be around about there, but I think the fact they're in the mix of that 4th place battle rather than the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, is a credit to them, considering how poorly they started.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't class them as overachievers. They spent a god awful amount of money.
Oh yeah,
over £100 million in the summer. So if they weren't there, then we would have talked about them already in underachievers. I think. they are where you would expect Arsenal to be. But yeah, you're right. They did start terribly.
Yeah,
into
just
the
because of
season.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Concede that point. Brighton are another
Yeah,
one.
that was my last one. Yep.
Yeah, Brighton are another one that have done absolutely fantastically under Graham Potter. I think Graham Potter is now his name's being bandied around seriously by, other teams. Before maybe last season before, if you talked about, what we get Graham Potter in at, for example, say West Ham, people would be like, no, I don't think he's right. I don't think he's good enough. That sort of thing. I think now he's got a bit of credit to his name. He's done fantastic things with, honestly, on paper, a very average side. They haven't got standout players, but they've got players that work hard and work well together, and that's often worth more than a team of superstars. Look at Everton.
Yeah, 100%. And sorry,
no, I was just going to say that where they are currently, maybe in the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, you would have seen Brighton down there struggling with relegation.
Absolutely.
We were down there fighting alongside them for the best part of the last 3 or 4 years. So it's good to see them up there, to be honest. I think they've done really well.
Yeah, and I was just gonna tail end to the back of your point is about that. I think that Graham Potter was linked to all sorts of stuff like United manager, all this kind of people, and they were like, no, before. But yeah, he's proven himself yet again, and I think he will jump. Could that be a Leicester City revival if they get more investment? Then that could be a job for him. Who knows? But I think he's done a really, really good job. And also, without some of his, we talk about some players missing, star players from teams. You had, Lamptey, who was their bright young star. He was injured for a long time. You had Basuma, who was unavailable for quite a long time, and obviously he's linked to potentially a move away. And all these players that they were kind of missing, and he's still done a job. And the main point I wanted to end on, and some people might go, oh no, they're not overachievers because they were so high up and now they're not as high. They over achieved at the beginning of the season by a long way. And I know, and we talked on here on the Roundup review before about some of those Brighton fans booing the 1-1 draws and stuff, and the manager coming out and going, I don't think you understand. We're still putting points on the board on the door, and you're not
points
seeing
points.
Exactly, and you're not seeing this. And if you'd said to Brighton fans, you're going to beat all these teams, you're going to have a crazy start to the season, and you're going to be where you are now, they would have been like, no, we're not. We're going to be, as you said, probably fighting in the relegation battle or the bottom half. So massive props to Graham Potter.
Yeah, then the last team that I have to talk about is Southampton. Now, at the start of the season, there were so many people, pundits, fans, who'd written us off. Said that we would be in that relegation fight this season. We'd lost Danny Ings, our talisman, that arguably kept us up for the best part of 2 seasons he's here. We lost Vestergaard, we lost Bertrand, and people thought that was it. Now, at the start of the season, I was never in the Ralph out camp. But I had, we talked about it previously on the Roundup review, and we even talked about it in the My Club episode we did. The problem was I don't think there was anyone better to replace Ralph. And I think that the board having stuck with Ralph has paid dividends now.
Absolutely.
We've got new owners. There is a whole culture change at Southampton. It's a really positive place at the moment. And since that's happened, I think we are unbeaten in 13 games at home, which is outrageous. And going back maybe 2-3 weeks, and I look at the running that we had City, Tottenham, United, Everton. Now, I'd have been happy if we'd gotten maybe 2 points out of that. But instead, we've got 8 or 9 points out of the 12, which is absolutely fantastic. We're unbeaten against any Manchester team this season. We've drawn 4 times with City and United. We're unbeaten at Tottenham, winning 1, drawing 1. And we're unbeaten at West Ham, winning 1 and drawing 1. Now that is, some fantastic form there, and some of the players are now coming into their own. I think Prowsey has now announced himself to a wider audience. He's no longer just labelled as a set piece specialist. Obviously, Brozier and Tino, people know about them. We've been talking about them for a long time. But now they're really starting to get their names out there, and I think the whole squad is gelled together. I think we finally found our best 11. And for the first time in a long time, I don't go into games feeling pessimistic about it.
Yeah, I think you've hit all the points I was expect from a Saints fan. But yeah, I agree that you could be up there with people writing you off from relegation fodder to doing that. But I think, as you said, it's the Ralph effect, where he was playing some really weird people at different positions, like left back and right back switches and all sorts of stuff, when it just didn't make sense. But now the 11 looks super good, and you've got Broja and Adams playing really well together when Adams has been fit, and it potentially is the Armstrong isn't in the best 11 at the moment, and that was kind of a big thing at the beginning of the season. But that's the point. You are gelling now. You are really difficult to break down, but also you've been much more affluent up the top. Like that,
Yeah.
that's not something that's traditionally a Southampton squad. Like, you are scoring a lot of goals, so you have been chipping away and doing that. And all they said, like, City draw, that's incredible for that. And I think that's really good from Southampton. So maybe next season people won't be so quick to jump on the bandwagon of this. And as I said, it's from the academy up that Ralph's kind of come in and solidified stuff and is doing things his way. So let's hope it stays that way for your sake, so you can go into games a bit more positive, and also for Southampton fans to just not have a constant Ralph out spam. They can have a little break from that.
No, they argue with each other on Twitter now.
Of course they do. They've got to argue about something. It's the nature of the social media football fan. Anyway, we will move on from over and underachievers. They're going to kind of feed in our points and our topics this one, so we're not going to spend crazy long talking about all of them. We're just going to touch on it. That's probably the biggest one. So the next one I want to talk about is European spots. So we've talked about some of the teams that we're going to talk about. So I think we should break it down into, let's start off talking about kind of fourth place, and then we'll go into kind of the Europa League and Europa Conference League spots. So fourth place, I think it's fair enough if I say that at the moment it's looking like it could be United, West Ham, Arsenal, Spurs, and I have put Wolves in question marks, but I think that's more a Europa spot than anything. They could make a crazy play. Anyone else you think I've missed off that, or that seems about right?
No, I'll be honest. If I was a betting man, I would say that fourth spot is United's.
Mm-hmm.
I think West Ham might drop a little bit towards the back end of the season. And again, I'm not too confident with Arsenal holding on to points, to be honest. But United, you have a few clutch players in there like Ronaldo and Fernandes who will pop up when needed, and you will get them 3 points, or you will rescue a draw and you'll eke it out. I think, if I'm honest, the way the top four stands at the moment is what I would say is probably going to be the thing at the end of the season. But you can't discount a late push from United to try and get that third spot.
Yeah,
because they're well within reach. Chelsea have got a game in hand on you, but we've seen Chelsea wobble slightly, and I think United could capitalise on that if the players start playing for Ralph a bit more, and it looks like it's happening. Like you say, we're starting to see a Jadon Sancho, which is what everyone was excited to see in this league.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think there's a few more players that you could probably eke out a little bit more quality from.
I think what you're saying makes sense. And I am slightly biased, even if I try not to be with it as a United fan. And I think that is the case. I think they're slowly starting to play for Rangnick. But, we saw literally 36 seconds, I think it was, till we dropped a two-goal lead to 2-2 on the weekend against Leeds. Luckily, we managed to come back from that. But I think, doing the maths, I kind of think myself as well. I'm like, West Ham, they're one big injury from, and I know Antonio hasn't been banging them in and he's dropped off, but they're one big striker miss away from not having a striker injury. And then, something could happen to Rice, for example, and that's kind of them kaput. I don't think that's going to work as well. I think Spurs could be the world, like a really big dark horse, because they could, if Harry Kane just plays out of his mind from that City game onward, you just don't know what's going to happen. But again, I don't think they've got it in the rest of the squad, as we've talked about previous weeks. And Arsenal, it might sound harsh, Arsenal fans, but I think even you'd agree with me yourself. It's Arsenal, so you just don't know if that's ever going to happen. Like, I think you could absolutely go for it, but I think out of all of them, there'd be a lot more people being pessimistic, going, "Are they going to do an Arsenal?" and just not do it. So, obviously, I'm hoping that United are going to get fourth. But I think realistically, if we were going to say where they're going to finish, I think it would be City, Liverpool, Chelsea, United. I think that will be the way it is. And I think the other teams will just miss out on it. We'll move on. I don't think there's that much to say about the top four. So we'll move on to Europa League spot. So I've got kind of 3 teams to talk about. Do you want to kick off on this one then?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking here West Ham, Arsenal, Tottenham, and Wolves, I think, as well.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't discount Wolves because they've done so well this season and they deserve to be where they are in the league. Tottenham and Arsenal do have a game in hand on Wolves, and they have 3 games in hand on West Ham. Mm-hmm. Wolves have 2 games in hand on West Ham.
Yeah,
you could argue that West Ham are there by their own graces at the moment, but when we see the rest of those games being played, they might start to see themselves dropping down into the sort of lower half of the top of the table.
Yep.
Realistically, if I was to give you a 5th, 6th, 7th, it was probably going to be Arsenal, Tottenham, West Ham for me in that order.
So. Yeah.
I don't think Tottenham have enough to really worry teams above them too much, to be honest. I don't think they're going to make a push for top 4 purely because they're just 2 players in that team. It's Son and Kane.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, their defense is so woeful.
Yeah. And their midfield's not what it used to be.
And their midfield is terrible. They leak goals. And that's not what you need when you're trying to consolidate a position up there.
Yeah.
I think, and the same with Arsenal. Arsenal are a team that you can frequently see them dropping points against the smaller teams. Actually, when you look at it, Wolves, that on form at the moment, they look like they'd be better shouts for a European spot.
Yeah, I kind of joked about it in the top 4 thing, and I think the same with this one. There's always a possibility, like with them this season, the way they're playing on form at the moment. That's what we're kind of going off. That I think it is. But I agree with you. I think the teams you've said are probably going to be the teams, and that I think most people will be fairly safe with that. And saying that, I think Wolves could make a dark horse push, and I think they could potentially do that. Europa League conference spot, however, I didn't touch him for 2 seconds. I think if we say the way that we said that the top 7 would go, I think it is Wolves that would get their Europa League conference spot. My question to you, I thought I'd throw this to you live without discussing it, just to see you. Do you think Saints could push for a cheeky Europa League conference spot?
I mean, listen, right, this is the realist in me. I would be ecstatic if we finished top 10.
Yeah.
It'd be the highest finish we had since Puel, where we finished 8th. But I would like to remind everyone that we were closer to 17th than we were to 7th.
Yeah.
And that's an often cited fact and stat, because a lot of people say that Puel was a good manager for us, but on paper it looks like he was a good manager. A cup final and an 8th place finish, but honestly it was terrible.
Yeah.
I think that we might have enough to stay in that top 10. Obviously Leicester have got 2 games in hand.
Yeah.
Thankfully they were beaten at the weekend. Villa have got a game in hand on us as well, but again, we're 5 points clear of both of those at the moment.
Yeah.
We're 7 points clear of Tottenham in 8th. We're 7 points behind Tottenham in 8th, and they've got games in hand. I'm not really thinking that we could probably push to that conference spot, but it depends. We've got very, very winnable games coming up. We've got a lot. I think we play in our next 6 games. We play the bottom 4.
Yeah. Oh, exactly, and you can get points out of all of it. I mean, realistically, I think it'd be Villa and Wolves pushing for that Europa League conference spot. I just wanted to see what you were gonna say about that. But also, it comes with a curse, same as the Europa League does. Of it's brilliant. And for lower teams down, it definitely is brilliant because it's more exposure and it's European nights and stuff. But at the same time, it might then have a big detriment on your season next year when it comes to the Premier League. Playing those Thursday nights away in all sorts of random countries really does affect it. We won't really touch on it too much as well. I was just going to mention it is obviously that those top 4 especially plays a massive impact on signings this summer. I'm sure we'll have a whole episode on that later towards the summer transfer window, but that could really shape what things are. And I don't see Cristiano Ronaldo staying because he's going to try to extend his lead. I don't see Erling Haaland coming to United or any other one if they're missing out on that top 4. So there's lots of interesting stuff like that. Anything else to say on those spots, or should we move on?
No, I think we can move on.
So this one would probably be really quick, but we thought as we're talking about teams and how impact and signings and form and all that kind of stuff, we should talk about the new manager bounce, because there is kind of 3 managers which have come in new. We could talk about Rangnick as well, but I personally wasn't going to talk about him in this at all, because I don't think it's been a bounce. We've gone forward in one sense, but backward in another. So do you want to kick off on this one?
Yeah, well, I've got 4 managers on the list to talk about. We'll go manager by manager if you want. I think we should start off with Eddie Howe. You can't argue with what he's done so far, really. Yes, they spent a lot of money in the January transfer window, but they'd notched up a couple of wins before then. They're unbeaten in 5. 3 wins, 2 draws. They've climbed out of the relegation zone. As much as it pains me to say it, because no one wanted the irony more than me of them being the richest club in the world and being relegated. But I think they'll be okay, to be honest now. Obviously you can't discount anyone. Obviously we saw Watford pick up points. We've seen Burnley pick up points.
It's going to be close. We know this at both ends.
It's going to be very, very close. But there's no doubt that what Howe has done in that dressing room has changed the way that Newcastle play for the better.
Yeah, I mean, my counterpoint would be, the only thing I'd have to say on Eddie Howe is I agree to an extent, but we'll get onto in a minute what I think, the next section, what I think is the linchpin of the failure or success of Newcastle staying up. And I actually think it's on one player more than it is on Eddie Howe himself.
I think we've got the exact same notes there, mate. So
we will carry on to the next manager.
So we can go for let's go for Gerrard at Villa.
Yeah.
I don't think they've seen an uptick, to be honest. I think that they don't look that inspiring, honestly. They've got 2 losses on the bounce now. Obviously, we saw after they signed Coutinho, strong impact from him. Not so much recently. I still don't think that Villa know their best 11. I feel like they're trying to. They spent a lot of money in the summer. They spent a lot of money in January. I think they're trying to shoehorn too many stars in, and I think that's part of the problem there. For example, trying to fit Danny Ings in that squad. I don't know he fits in that squad.
No, I don't think he does.
As much as it pains me to say, Danny Ings could have been, a legend at Southampton. He's chosen to go away, in search of, more ambition or whatnot.
And he's going to throw it away.
And he finds himself in a position where he's only scored a few times this season. He doesn't get a lot of game time. When he does get a lot of game time, he goes missing.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think it's a waste there. And I don't know that Gerrard has made that much of an impact to that squad.
Okay. So I would actually argue that most of these managers, I would argue that I think Gerrard's made the most impact for me personally. Because I think that on the last 2 games, they've been very poor and you haven't seen it. But I think the games before that, with a run of about 4 to 6 games, where I think Gerrard's come in and you saw it instantly, the impact. But I think he brought something. I just think for me, he brought an extra step to that Villa squad. I agree with what you're saying about Ings, and I agree about not the 11 and maybe even shoehorning in too many stars. But I think once he's unlocked a bit like Ralph did, I think when he unlocks his starting 11, we're going to start seeing it even more. I think that he's getting the best out of players like Ramsey and stuff that didn't really get a shoe in under the old manager. And I just think that if you can get Coutinho working together with the rest of that squad more and getting more consistent, I think they really will. I just think they've had 2 particular bad games, but I think you will see it. And I generally think, that Gerrard has a massive future, and I think they could really be pushing next season to something special if he gets the team working and then gets a few more, not stars, he needs a few more robust team and squad players to throw in there. And honestly, this might come as not as a surprise to you, but I personally can see a world where they could look to sell Danny Ings, because I think he likes Ollie Watkins, and I think he likes Ramsey, who can play on the wing and stuff. And I just think if Gerrard was there, Danny Ings was never going to be bought. And that's I'm not saying he's surplus to requirements because I think that's too harsh, but I just don't think he's the first choice, and I think he's going to see his minutes wane.
He doesn't fit in that team.
And the age he is, are you going to stay? I don't know. So it means
there were rumours of Arsenal being interested in Danny Ings, which I mean it's not a bad shout. They lost Aubameyang, didn't replace, so
yeah.
I imagine Villa will make a loss on the 30 million they paid for him.
I don't know how the system works as well, but instantly my head goes to West Ham. They don't have a striker that apart from Antonio, someone that's going to pay the money for him, but could do it anyway. Let's move on to the next manager because we'll probably spend too long on that. So the next manager we'll go for. Let's go for Lampard next.
Yeah. See, the thing is,
too early. I think with them.
Yeah, and not only that, but I don't think new manager bounce applies here because Everton are such a shit show.
They were for one game. That's it. The initial first game bounce, and since then, yeah. But I think it's slightly. It's interesting to see. He hasn't been there very long, so he's had a couple of games, and I think he also is trying to figure out his best 11 because he hasn't been there very long. I think we'll get on to some players in a minute that I want to talk about from player impact signings for that squad, and I think they could see a big success in that. But I think in terms of the overall vision, you will see a Lampard bounce, and I think with the new stadium stuff, he'll build on something. And I think Lampard has it like Gerrard, maybe not as much as Gerrard. I think he's maybe, in my opinion, a little bit more in terms of that young new kind of Premier League new blood. But I think I think Lampard will get them there eventually. It might just take some time, and I don't think it's going to be a pretty finish to the end of this season for them. Is how I'd sum that up.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And the next one, I'm really interested because they both had a reasonable the same amount of time, is Roy Hodgson. So I don't know what your thoughts are on this one. It's been short, but yeah.
Yeah, the thing is, I actually think Roy Hodgson, if anyone's going to save Watford this season, it's Hodgson.
Yeah.
And a good win at the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I listened to, and I'm sure you have as well, the Fozcast,
mm-hmm.
And Ben Foster talking particularly about Roy Hodgson coming back in and the difference in managerial styles and how he works and how he gets the team playing. I think we could see a bounce there because Watford's squad ain't that bad,
mm-hmm.
Especially up top. We got the likes of Emmanuel Dennis, Ismaili Sarr. If they can get them firing again, tighten up that defence as Hodgson teams do.
Absolutely.
They defend well.
Yeah.
I think honestly we could be seeing Watford making a late dash out of that relegation zone. They're definitely going to keep it spicy between the likes of Brentford, Leeds, Everton, Newcastle. That if I'm honest, that 18th spot, I think at the moment it could go to anyone from Brentford, Leeds, Everton, Newcastle, Watford.
Yeah. I totally agree.
I was going to say I don't think that what Norwich and Burnley have enough in them to stay up. But I do think Watford have enough.
Yeah, and I think you've hit some really important points. And I was going to say, even though it's at the same time as Lampard, effectively, it might be a game or two difference. I think it is, but I do think you've seen a bounce because I don't think anyone can say, and I think it's even mentioned on the Fozcast episode that they hadn't had a clean sheet in something ridiculous, like a very, very, very long time. Roy Hodgson comes in. They didn't get a win, but they instantly got the draw, and now they then did get the win. And it's exactly that. I think they had a really, really poor defense. And that's the main thing they need to work on. They had the attacking power throughout the team. They just needed someone to come in and completely solidify it. And the fact that Hodgson's going to play what Hodgson does, but that could be enough for them. And the fact they've taken that defence and managed to get 2 clean sheets means that there's something working there. And so I do think there is a bounce. I think more than top 4, the relegation battle and just above it is going to be the spiciest part of this whole season because genuinely, it could be anyone because they've all had even Norwich have had to a turnaround, since the Manchester, they've all been picking up points and they've made it really interesting. So I think, it's going to be a super fun, exciting time. If you're a neutral or don't support those teams, if you're near the bottom, you're going to have a horrible end to the season because you just don't know what's going to happen.
I've been there. I'm there quite frequently.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest, I'm not going to touch wood right now, and I'm not going to try and jinx myself, but it's nice to look at it from the outside for a change.
Yeah, I think you'll be fine. But I just think this year in particular, with some of the January spendings as well, it's going to be so close, and it's going to be, we change our minds every week, and who's going to stay up and who's not, and I think it's going to be very, very close. Anyway, let's kind of get on to the second to last point. The last one is really, really quick, but this one we want to talk about. So we've talked about managers and we've talked about places, but we wanted to talk about a few teams. And we want to talk about impact signings from January, and some of them it could be enough. So I've got a few down, but do you want to kick off on this one, and we'll kind of just talk about them?
Yeah, sure. So I've got three main ones actually. The first one is Weghorst at Burnley. I mean, he is stereotypical Burnley player, but goddamn, is he good at it?
He's good at everything. He's quite quick. He's super strong.
Yeah.
He's super good at finishing.
I love him. I really love him. And honestly, I'd have loved him at Southampton.
Yeah.
He reminds me a lot of Graziano Pella with a bit more pace. I think he's got everything that Burnley need from a striker. Unfortunately, I don't think Burnley have got everything elsewhere.
Yeah.
And that's probably going to be what causes their problem. I would be surprised if there wasn't a relegation clause in his contract.
Yeah, me too.
And I would be surprised if they do go down, that someone like West Ham.
He'd be so good at West Ham.
Yeah, I mean, what I would argue though is Sebastian Haller went to West Ham, very similar player profile, and didn't work at all. But I wouldn't be surprised to see him go into a kind of mid to lower mid sort of type.
I think that Weghorst is, if for me, he's hit the ground running, and he's got, I think I've put it down here, 1 goal, 2 assists in like 4 games. I think it is. I think he's really hit the ground running, proven what he can do. But I think that, again, I don't know, as you agree, and I think it's a shame because I like Sean Dyche's sides, and I think that Burnley he's just stayed there too long as a manager, as we've said in previous episodes. But I don't think it's enough, but I think he'll make it spicy. He's one of the people that will make it a little bit more, and he's a good shout for your fantasy league team and stuff from a cheaper player that could be getting in.
Already in there.
Me too, mate. Me too.
Yeah, mate, you're looking at my team.
No. I played my wild card this weekend. Gone.
Did you?
And I finally sunk into it, and I actually think I've got it's quite different from lots of the other league, but I've managed to shoehorn in a load of superstars. So, got really light on the attack because no one is. But typically, it was the week that I took out Harry Kane. Anyway, we'll move on. So, do you want to go to your next player?
Yeah, next player, and I know we have probably identical notes on this player. This player is arguably the only person who's going to keep Newcastle up, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
And that's Kieran Trippier.
Yeah.
His impact was undeniable. We said before he's a quality player.
Yeah.
He always has been quality player. He's getting on a bit, yes. Had a big price tag, yes. But it's the kind of signing that you need to make if you want to try and stay up in the Premier League.
Absolutely.
So Newcastle did well with that signing. To now find he's injured 6 to 8 weeks out, and I think that is going to be a big problem for Newcastle because he scored some big goals, a couple of free kicks, and that have rescued points for him, and one points for him. So he's so influential in that team. He's experienced, he's quality, and I think he's going to be sorely missed.
Yeah, and so for me, I think I said it on a previous Roundup review that was going to be the key success anyway before the injury, and you've kind of hit most of it on there. But what you get from him just can't be understated. Like, he is the set piece, specialist in that team now, and he's deadly from a set piece and has already proven the points. He's older, so he's bringing that leader and experience stuff. And he still will be able to do some of it because when he's doing rehab and stuff, he'll still be able to be in the team and influencing them a bit. But I think on the pitch, he really does pull it together, even for England and stuff as well. You see him shouting at he doesn't care if he's been out of the team for ages, he'll shout at, his world-class centre-back mate that's not pulling the weight and stuff. And I think it is. And I think, metatarsal injury, 6 to 8 weeks, that's, if you're lucky, it could be way worse. It could not be, depending on how they heal, because it's one of the awkward ones.
And let's not forget, he is an older footballer now, so injuries don't heal as quickly.
More. And I think, as you said, it's I think Trippier is make or break for Newcastle. I think the rest of their signings, you're not gonna. They've done some other ones, some of them good, some of them bad, some of them really mediocre. But for me, Trippier is the answer. And if you can get him back quick enough, is it going to salvage points? We will see. Who knows? Let's move on. So I think you said, one more left on your list.
One more, and it's really more of a kind of note, because I don't think this player has particularly, especially in the Premier League, done a lot, and that's Luis Diaz at Liverpool.
Yeah. One goal.
And this is more for friend of the podcast, Steve, who I know is very, very excited about Luis Diaz, and I think give him a little bit more time. I think once we know what's happening with the contract situation at Liverpool, I think we're gonna probably see a better side of Luis Diaz. At the moment, that attack at Liverpool is so stacked that it's hard to get a good run of games in there. But I honestly think that you might not see Salah and Mane stay.
Yeah. Well, this is my go on.
And then I think the door's wide open for a player of Luis Diaz's caliber there.
Yeah. So in my opinion, I think Diaz is a brilliant signing. I think I always have question marks about people coming to the Prem if they can do it and keep up that same kind of consistency. Games he's played, I think it's only one for the Prem, but I think he scored in one of the cup competitions as well, if I'm not mistaken. But I think he is the real deal. But I am 90% sure he's Mane's replacement. I've said out of the two, I think they will. It's typical Liverpool. It's typical the Fenway Company that they might screw this up and Salah could go. I don't see it happening though. I think he'll find a solution. But Mane, I just think he doesn't like living in the shadow anyway. African Cup of Nations and stuff, he outdid Salah's team, and I think that is the perfect replacement. They can keep Jota because Jota's over Firmino. I think Firmino could even move on if he's not happy to stay and play a sub-fiddle role. He might be, and that's fine. And then it's perfect to stay. But there, I think you will see I think next season will be Diaz, Salah, Jota, and that's going to be the front three. So I think that's what he's done. And again, he hasn't been here very long. What I've seen, I really like. I think they've got a great signing for them. So you'll be happy, boy, Steve. But I think it means sadness on the other end because I think you're losing one of your front three. I have a couple more really quick ones to touch on. 4 players actually, 2 of them from the same team. So one of them is Coutinho. I think we don't need to say much more. We've already kind of touched on it. He had an impact for the first 2 games, then has slunk off a bit. I think they really need to work out where he fits in the team and what the team fits around him. And if he, as we said before, when they were thinking about signing him, is he going to be good or is he going to be like good for a bit and then just go, I can't bother anymore? And that is a massive issue for them. Please jump in on any of these. Everton, I think their midfield new duo. I think Donny has looked really good. Donny van der Beek, sorry, for anyone listening. I think that he has shown glimpses of what he could have done at United, and I think he's going to be much more influential than Ali, who I don't think has hit the ground running yet as much, but depending on where the lamps can get both of them working together, not sure. But I think Donny's going to really add something to them.
I think, I'm having watched the full Southampton Everton game. Donny showed some glimpses, but he also showed the reason why he's not still fighting for a place at United. I think it felt a little bit at times. He got quite frustrated when the runs weren't being made, and I felt he kind of got swallowed a bit in the game.
He had a good first game before.
He had a great first game. Let's be honest, but and he came up against arguably one of the most informed midfield duos in the Premier League at the moment in Romeo and Prowse, who are running any midfield that they're coming across at the moment. So it was a hard game for Van der Beek, but I do think he will be quality for Everton, and I do think
he needs football. He needs a run of games and get used to his teammates, and I think you'll really see him. And then said Ali's the question mark for me.
Dele Alli, absolutely not. I don't think he's got the attitude. He came on and was invisible at the weekend. I don't think he's had the attitude for a couple of years now. Maybe 2 or 3. And this is it for him. I don't think he's got it. I don't think he'll be an impact. I think that honestly, he's part of the problem, along with Alex Iwobi. Spending that amount of money on those 2 players, is going to be the death knell for them, to be honest.
No, I agree. And the last player, not that he's played very much at all, but I thought as the weekend's just gone, we couldn't really not mention him, and I'm sure I'm about to absolutely butcher his name. But Kulusevski for Tottenham, we'll go with that. Obviously, he came on for his first game and got his first goal. was the first goal for Spurs. So I'm really interested to see how those Juve boys settle in. But you can't ask more than the game against City turning up and doing what he did. So, it's just one of them to keep an eye on. But I was like, you can't really not mention him if he had such a big impact on that one game. It's a mystery question mark against him. Who knows?
But well done on the pronunciation, by the way.
Was it good? I don't know. Yeah, I was going off what I thought. I should have Googled it before. Yeah, so that's kind of that. And then the last one, it's a really, really quick one. And I don't think it's even a discussion point. I think we're both probably on the same page about it. So the last point I want to talk about was we've talked about kind of middle of the table, top four, the bottom of the table. And I just want to talk about the title race itself. So for first and second, and I just wanted to say, for me personally, I will get my co-host's opinion on it, but I'm sure it's probably going to be very similar to mine, is that I just think, obviously, I know that the media has to sell papers. They have to sell website clicks. They have to sell papers themselves. But everything gets blown so out of proportion when it comes to the title race, because I think a few weeks ago, we saw City drop some points and Pep Guardiola going, yeah, okay, we dropped some points. It happens. And they, that team played well. And Klopp going, don't be silly. We're probably going to be second, and that's just, we're not going to catch them. Then again, this weekend, you see another drop and instantly it blows up and everyone goes, the title race is blown wide open. This is going to happen. And I just think it's one of those things that frustrates me, because yes, it's fun to build some hype around it. And yes, they absolutely have got closer, but I don't think there's many people, even Liverpool fans, if you're being true to yourself and looking heart of heart, I don't think there's many Liverpool fans going, even without a striker, it's probably City's year again to win the league and you're going to come second. And you're going to drop some points at some times at Liverpool, even though you've been incredibly good at grinding out results when you've needed to. I just think City have too much depth and firepower. And yes, it's closer, but let's not go overboard. Anyway, I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah, I mean, 100% agree. The other, and I think the most important thing to look at is the running.
Mm-hmm.
In the remaining games, the big clubs that City have got left to play is United and Liverpool themselves.
Yeah.
Liverpool have got United, they've got Arsenal, they've got City, they've got Tottenham, and obviously they've got Southampton as well, which is going to be a hard game for them. So they've got some real tough games coming up. Arguably tougher than City's.
Yeah.
City have got the squad depth. I think Liverpool, a few key injuries away from looking quite weak, especially in the back, and more specifically Van Dijk. Liverpool without Van Dijk are a very, very different team to Liverpool with Van Dijk. And I think that this where they currently are is probably where we're going to finish the season. I think City have won it.
Yeah.
I think they've got too much quality in too much depth for anyone really to challenge.
Yeah, I agree. And that has kind of been it. We kind of started on, we've gone in on players, we've been on managers, we've been to the middle of the table, top of the table, and bottom of the table. So kind of a nice roundup review inside of a roundup review episode to talk about the league in general. So don't forget, if you have been liking this content, don't forget to hit a like, give us a subscribe, and even hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when we go live, because I'm quite prone to that. It's good to just be able to go bink the episodes out, because we haven't got a day specifically just yet. We've kind of been more kind of mid of the week to end of the week at the moment, so we're just done in just kind of working that out still. And obviously for all you audio listeners or anyone who's watching on YouTube, we are on Spotify now, so head over there, give us a follow on there, and if you have been enjoying this, please give us a 5-star review, because it really helps us out on there. But we know that that's a good way that people like to listen to these kind of podcasts on platforms. You might be at work and don't want to be having YouTube up on your screen, you might be in the car. It's just broadening the audience up. And so that has really been it. I just want to say thank you again to my constant co-host Rich.
Thank you very much for having me, as always.
You're very welcome, mate. And it's good to be back. We've had a little bit of a break. We'll be back bringing new content. And I think the biggest thing has been just that the fixtures are so all over the place at the moment. It's difficult to get in. We've got a lot of specials plans coming up, but we'll be trying to bring more consistent content to your feeds, whether that is Spotify or YouTube. But if that, we'll leave you on that. There's midweek football coming up this week, actually, for Premier League and Champions League, depending if your team's in it or not. So, good luck to all your teams. Enjoy some football, and we will catch you all very soon. Thanks very much.